Right, welcome to a geographical cultural history of Francisco Dean Carlos Rebello. Is three continents: Asia, Africa, Europe, six countries that have passed through: India, Portugal, Kenya, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, and the United Kingdom. Four languages: Konkani, which they speak in Goa, Swahili, which they speak in East Africa, and English and Portuguese. And I'll take it to the motherland, the beginning. Can you hear the music? So, Goa is here in the west coast of India, and it's famous for its hippie culture, laid back vibes, exotic fruits, and Portuguese architecture. And what makes Goa unique in India is that it was a Portuguese colony for over 400 years. And this is the old church in Old Goa of the patron saint, Saint Francis Xavier, who is also, I share my name with, Francisco Rebello, the most Goan name in history. It's not also just a cool name, it's also my granddad's name, Caetano Francisco Rebello. And he was a great entrepreneur and tailor fashion designer in Nairobi, Kenya, where he spent most of his life. And after living in Kenya, he moved all his stuff and his family to Goa, where he made his house, family house in Benauli village in Goa. And may have heard of Goa before. It's famous for like beaches and parties and casinos and stuff, but this is the Goa village life that I know and love. The sounds, the birds. You can hear my dad speaking the language here too. And on the left, you can see this is like a lucky sight of the people in the village taking coconuts from our front garden. But the guy, he has no equipment. He's just climbing up with his feet and cutting off the coconuts and stuff. And a lot of these things you won't see when you go on holiday at a hotel or staying at people's houses. These are like super kind of old school traditions. And this is pictures of me and my dad in Goa, in a Goa house. Me as a baby in the center. On the right, me like as a 21-year-old. And at the bottom, more recently. And basically, when I go with my dad to Goa, he goes every year, I go sometimes, and we just live our best lives, cooking food on a stove, showering with a bucket, and eating rice and fish and beer any time of the day. And the next place is East Africa. Yeah, I got some music. So my mum was born in Tanzania and my dad was born in Kenya. And it might be confusing to many, like, why are Indians in Africa? But it was a whole culture of people kind of moving through the colonies. It's documented in this book, Goings of British East Africa, 1865 to 1980. And my dad describes it as his parents' generation would have moved for a better life. If you look at the image on the top left, this is kind of the colonial, like, well-dressed life that they were going for. And on the bottom right, you can see they established like Goan Institute in 1909 in Nairobi, Kenya. So it's a long history of a whole like generation and more of people that grew up there. And my mum, she was born in a town called Moshi on the foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro. And this is my mum, the littlest one, and her brother. My mum's name's Pauline, and this is her brother, Uncle Raymond, and Auntie Olinda. And this guy is my dad. He is the musician of the family, and he grew up in Nairobi, Kenya. And in the middle is him and his mum and dad and his brothers and sisters. And around is kind of him and his friends and the lifestyle that he lived. And he always describes it as a time of just enjoying life and community and not needing anything expensive, but like he really thinks this was the best times of his life. And this is in like the 90s. My dad took me and my brother back to see his dad's shop in Nairobi. And this is me, my dad, my brother in Ngorongoro crater in Tanzania on safari. And Tanzania is a place I've been many times before, as many times as Goa, because I have my auntie Olinda there, my mum's sister, and so all my cousins, and now my cousins' children, and it's a super nice, super epic. And one of the best things I've learned from like having this African roots is Hakuna Matata. It was made famous in the Disney movies, but it's actually like a way of life for people in Tanzania and Kenya and Uganda. And it's like, expect to be late waiting for a bus or a taxi or my dad to come to your dinner party, but it's more like you kind of take life for what it is and be happy with what you've got. And as a child growing up, seeing like some of the poorest people but with the biggest smiles, I think was quite a humbling experience. And next on the list is London. So basically, in the 60s, a lot of the colonies got given back to the first natives. And in that process, like the English and everyone else that came in the colonies kind of got kicked out. And my dad came in his 20s to London when he was like still kind of loving rock and roll and living that life. And this is him and my uncles in London in, I think, the 70s. And my dad wanted to get married to a Goan girl, and my mum, after Africa, she didn't go to London, she went to Goa. They didn't know each other then, but then my mum wanted to marry a London man, so boom, they got married, dressed in a white suit and sunglasses, and then boom, baby Cisco was born in Goa, and my dad tried his best to keep me a Goan boy by making me have a bath in a tub with a goat in the village. But my mum, she took me to London, and this is in my passport picture, came as a baby on my mum's lap. And so I really extra respect my mum, because I came with her on her own, and she had to make a new life in London, like get used to like married life, working life, childminders, all these things, and we kind of like went through that together. And this is like a snapshot of my London growing up life. And I think Australians think I grew up in Hogwarts or Buckingham Palace, but I grew up in Wembley, one of the most like big Indian communities in London. And also seeing like the map of the world and how there was like British colony and stuff, like it kind of makes sense that lots of my friends growing up are from around the world, Africa, Philippines, and all my English and Irish school friends. And this is a snapshot of my family life. It includes lots of music, lots of food, and lots of colourful shirts. And this is, I've found loads of pictures on Facebook and stuff of my mum's cooking. We have like, Goan culture is a lot of like food and parties, and some of these dishes you won't find in an Indian restaurant, you won't even find in a Goan restaurant. They're like, see the way my mum makes the samosa, she's been making it for years, and different like little bits and pieces that you'd be lucky to eat. And this is my dad singing. Listen to the lyrics. Anyway, my dad, so he played in bands when he was younger, like rock and roll and stuff, but now he loves to sing music, Swahili, even Konkani, Portuguese, and this is the birthday, we had a Hakuna Matata themed birthday for him. And basically, my dad loves music and singing. And this is like me like more recently when I left Wembley and I moved to East London, I was more like becoming my own as a designer. And I think I realized when I was younger, I was like holding my culture back to fit in with like my English friends. And then as I got older, I realized, now this is what makes me unique and different. And then finally, went from London no, that's Peter Andre. Anyway, so in Australia now, and I guess I'm like following my parents and grandparents before me of like changing countries, adjusting to a new culture, making new friends, and starting from scratch, which has been an interesting journey. And when I'm in England, I'm the Indian guy, and when I'm in Australia, I'm the British guy, or British, as I really say, because I realise we don't pronounce our T's. And speaking of T's, the one stereotype that I'm happy to abide by is that I like a lot of tea, and a proper cup of tea, like with milk and sugar, and like English breakfast tea. And one thing I don't know, like the rest of the world needs to be put on to about London is it's not really like Prince Charles. It's more like this guy who went viral, who reviewing chicken shops in London. And I have many times had cravings for cheap fried chicken and not been able to find it in Sydney. But check this guy out.
Wings and that. I was expecting the best because bear in mind, fam, this thing was in total £6.40. The wings were fairly fresh. You know, they fell off the bone quite well. Like they were well cooked, quite succulent. Going into actual flavour, weak.
And that's it. Wait. Oh yeah, so here we go. We went from India to East Africa to London and to Australia. And that's me, my Goa shirt. To be continued.